Welcome to all of our panelists. I'm looking forward to the conversation. So the first question said, as we know, there's a push across federal government to derive value from operational data and use the insights that we're deriving from that data to have significant impact on mission outcomes. And the use of AI and ML and other emerging technologies have been front and center as part of the solution set. So I want to have that come alive for our audience today so you can give us real life examples of how that's playing out in your particular mission. Bob, let's start with you. In your role at CBP, you're pursuing several initiatives where AI and ML are being utilized: financial systems modernization, unified migration portal, autonomous towers. Can you let the audience know about these efforts and the mission impact you've seen so far?
Sure. Thanks, Margie. Pleasure to be here today. And I think I can kind of follow up with some of the comments Deputy Commissioner Perez made and Taylor Ray made for Border Patrol systems development. So a lot of the work I'm doing right now is concentrated on how do we modernize our data handling within the Border Enforcement and Management Systems Directorate. But that's also being done in tandem with my other group in Enterprise Networks, which runs a lot of our cloud initiatives as we move towards an infrastructure as code environment. So the teams are operating as one now to deliver solutions faster for the operators. And what we're really seeing a lot of, you made good mention of the Autonomous Surveillance Towers program. So that's a system that we're rolling out in several locations that runs in our cloud environments that operates autonomously and then provides intelligence back to Border Patrol or the ports of entry when they detect certain types of activity. And that's a technology that we wouldn't have been able to deploy just, maybe a year or a year and a half ago, but we're able to now. And what that allows us to do on the IT front, it's pushing some of the processing out to the edge. So we're not backhauling everything back to the data center to do a bunch of AI analytics on it or machine learning. But it's also providing a lot more real-time information to our operators that they can utilize right away to respond to threats or events that are occurring out at the borders or between the ports of entry. You mentioned another program, the Unified Immigration Portal. That's a wonderful program that I'm privileged to be part of right now that has, support from, our commissioner on down and other departments. And we're able to ingest a lot of data in that system that resides in our cloud environments. And then I think two of the best examples on that of where we're using a little bit of AI on that is we're able to do more predictive analytics on things like can we predict how long someone might be in custody, or can we predict how long until processing will be complete so that we can give ICE more of a heads up when detainees may be moving from CBP to ICE. And that enables us to respond quicker at CBP and at ICE and also have a far better understanding of what's occurring in the environment in real time. I think the other thing that we're seeing as well is I think that we have to make the acceptance now that we shouldn't be maintaining our old data centers. We have to migrate out of them because you can't take advantage of AI or machine learning to the extent that you need to on large data sets or on large real-time information, video or other sensor information in legacy data centers. So I'm continuing to really push hard for cloud migration, cloud adoption, and cloud native strategies to harness really the power that exists in the cloud providers. So those are some of the initiatives that I have going on right now.
Well, the sheer volume of data that CBP processes on a daily basis, your push to move that computing to the edge and to be able to derive the insights from that data is in real time is certainly a boon to the frontline law enforcement executives. Question for you on the financial side, are you also using it in your back office implementations?
We're exploring some initiatives there. We do run a very large financial system at CBP, not just dealing with our appropriated funding, but we do a lot of collection through the on our trade and travel missions as well. It could be things for visas or travel authorizations or tariffs or fines, penalties, or forfeitures. So we are kind of modernizing those systems. We have a big modernization effort going on our collection system, funded partially through the TMS, the Treasury Modernization Fund. And on some of my systems, we're exploring some initiatives on our seized property system, a little bit lower scale, but using some process robotics to kind of speed up some of the heavy manual clicking that goes into certain things. So we are making some forays in the financial area, not quite as advanced as maybe in the detection space.
And you mentioned the improvement in interoperability in the mission space between you at CBP and ICE agents, and particularly the ability to smoothly do the handoffs. And once you have that situational awareness in real time, you can certainly improve that. So Jere, I'm going to move to you and talk about ICE. And ICE has similarly been curating data and using it to improve mission delivery. And it has HSI's Innovation Lab. And many of the personnel in that lab work on AI solutions. Can you share with us why you established the lab and what are some of the examples of solutions that are deployed today or planned for the future in that arena?
Absolutely, Margie. It's a really good question. So I think the first thing to talk about is the impetus for us establishing the lab. Actually started with one of our agents who was conducting an investigation over financial data, and he found that the financial data was so voluminous that it was not possible for him to actually get through it. So he went out, because he was a data scientist, kind of like as a hobby, apart from being an agent, he was a data scientist. So he went out and kind of designed his own system in the garage of his house to apply AI and machine learning to this big chunk of data and start creating red flags. And so when he got done, he started testing it against big blocks of data, financial transactions that were going through Casa de Cambios and money remitters and stuff. And he ended up with a product that was about 80% accurate. And when we say 80% accurate, it means that he would hit a record, and basically what he designed would say, hey, look, this is a suspect record. And about 80% of the time, we could then run all the data off that record and find some other link in our database that said we had been investigating either the person or the business or some entity involved in that transaction. So when he put all that together, I think our executive leadership said, you know what, this is the way we need to go in the future, because this guy took, what would take agents probably 3 years, because we're talking hundreds of thousands of transactional records, and he was able to screen it in weeks or days using this system that he built. So that was kind of the impetus for starting the Innovation Lab. Then once the Innovation Lab got up and running, we started applying it to some of the challenges that we see on a daily basis through investigation. To be honest with you, I think that in and of itself creates another challenge for the Innovation Lab, because they go out and they get hit to build a small solution for a problem, and we're trying to get them to build big solutions for a problem. So it really becomes kind of like a management of time and resources for us. One of the things that we're doing right now is the development of our system Raven, which is kind of going to be our large data analytics system. And we're really taking a kind of a different way of doing business for the federal government, in that we're using a lot of off-the-shelf technology that's open source, and then we're molding it to fit our needs so that we can then use it to search different databases. One of the guys that works in our lab, he uses the example of phone numbers. We have 27 or 35 databases that we pull data from, and in almost every one of them, they format a phone number differently. And so in common ways of searching that data, we'll never be able to pull the phone numbers out because it's too laborious. So we're using AI or machine learning to try to teach computers, hey, look, if it comes in this sequence, treat it like a phone number. And then that way we can bounce it off of all the other records and see if we have commonalities with other phone numbers. So that's kind of where we're at, where we're going with Raven. We've done some other stuff with object character recognition, where we're trying to automate, handwritten forms that we've been collecting for decades and we're trying to get them converted into a digital format so that we can then put them in a database and then apply AI to them to try to find patterns in that as well. But that's what we have going on right now.
So pattern recognition has become a big part of your use of AI and being able to use that in your investigations. So that's a huge improvement, I'm sure. So the raw data around chemical and around criminal and financial activities, how is that enhancing daily operations?
Oh, absolutely. I think we because of what we saw when Ben, this agent, built his own system to look at financial data. We've started kind of applying that to a lot of the work that we do, because we know that in the federal arena, almost 100% of criminal activity is driven by a financial motivation. And so we're more focused on the financial side. And so this ability to kind of build AI that helps us understand predictors in financial transactions allows us to screen lots and lots of financial data that is available through SARS and stuff like that, and to say, okay, these are higher risk transactions that you really need to take a look at, which saves us weeks on an investigation.
Yeah. So Mahtab and Vimesh, you work with multiple clients across Homeland Security Enterprise, and can you provide some examples of where AI and ML has been a game changer among your clients? And Mahtab, we'll start with you. What are you seeing happening in your client base?
Sure. I think the most relevant example would be with Jere's organization. They're doing some amazing work in the HSI field offices, protecting victims of, really terrible crimes like human trafficking. And they have really leaned into very innovative, AI and ML technologies to accelerate these investigations. And those workloads really require rock solid infrastructure. So we have worked with them for a couple of years, providing them the infrastructure required to run those workloads. So we have, the compute and the unstructured storage arrays in those offices, and we load them up with, our partners like NVIDIA and Intel, to have that accelerated experience to, make those investigations, able to create net new insights, to make them go more efficiently. So that is one that we're just very, just proud and honored to support. I think another example could be in the DoD space. Air Force has really become the leader in innovation there. And we worked with them a few years ago to develop a net new application that helped them around proactive maintenance of their aircraft. So they were able to create a software with us, which basically took in sensor data from their aircraft and made them much more efficient around when they were refueling, these airplanes, and it's saving them millions and millions of dollars. And then internally at Dell, we have incorporated AI into our own support organization, where in the commercial and enterprise space, we have a lot of our storage arrays and servers dialing home to our support centers. And we're able to take data collected from those arrays and servers and get much more predictive around when components are going to fail. And we're really sending out these components and these hard drives proactively to our customers before anything even happens. So, those are three examples. We're working a lot with CBP. We are supplying them the compute at their edge and working with them on federated, AI architectures to support their e-commerce requirements. So just a lot of work, that's been done and is being done. It's an honor to work with everyone on this panel.
Similar question for you, Vimesh. What do you see happening with your clients?
Yeah, thank you, Margie. We've been seeing a lot and spending a lot of time in kind of this integration, right, of sensors and data to support, the real-time process. So, something we've been working on for a little while is our Fast Lane program, which was targeted towards helping, improve the flow of traffic at checkpoints, secure facilities or borders, where we will outfit a set of sensors and basically try and correlate, license plate with face. And say, hey, can I use, something I see, a database on the back end to help improve the flow of traffic and help make decisions a lot faster, right? So we can get cars moving a lot faster. We actually did a demo and tested this at our headquarters in St. Louis, and we had like a bunch of volunteers literally doing loops around the parking garage, right, to see how fast we could get people in and out. We've extended that to some efforts around port security and smart ports, really. So the two kind of go hand in hand. But you imagine, right? There's a lot of volume of cargo. There's a lot of data, and there's a lot of moving parts and pieces. So anything you could do from an operator perspective, right, to improve efficiency is really, really important. But you can also couple that, right, to improve security. And so one effort we have is, imagine a set of cameras, right, on gantry cranes that are literally looking at these containers coming off the ship, identifying them immediately, looking at the images to look for signs of tampering, and then correlating that with back-end data to look at the bill of lading, right, to help determine whether there's been any changes, or maybe to help determine that, that particular container needs to go off for another inspection, or really speeding the flow, right, and moving it along. And one other I wanted to mention, Bob, you talked about adding the automation around robotic process automation around transaction matching, and we've seen some interesting work there as well, where RPA is being implemented quite a bit to help eliminate mundane tasks. When you take RPA and you couple it with machine learning, you can really start to accelerate the decision-making process. So one effort we worked on was basically for financial transaction matching, where the RPA implementation can only do so much to try and help correlate financial transactions and reconcile them. But we implemented a set of algorithms, basically said, we saw using large amounts of training data, when this type of error occurred, this was the most likely resolution, right? And then we try and basically make that resolution, present it back to a human who can then basically sort of click the button and say, yep, please fix it this way and move on. So really kind of trying to take that data to accelerate, human processes and supplement them as quickly and as best as we can.
Understood. It sounds like there's a lot of activity going on in that area. So we're facilitating the free trade and travel, to support the commerce of the United States. And the COVID crisis has actually put that at scale, because now we have the kind of e-commerce that is expanding rapidly, and particularly with some of the partners that I'm sure CBP uses on a regular basis. And we heard some of the previous fireside chats address possible partnerships with those kinds of transportation and delivery organizations. So that could be another area in e-commerce where things can be used in the AI and ML arena to accelerate that. Do you have anything going on in that arena, Bob, at all?
Oh. Sorry, I had to find my mute button. We do, certainly. I mean, so a big part of our mission is, facilitating lawful trade and travel. And certainly the COVID crisis has really, brought to light, some things that we can do to help. So, early on in the crisis, we did roll out some initiatives for our pharmaceutical CEE, which helps, adjudicate imports for safety and compliance with the law. So we were able to set up something very quickly for them using some of our, software as a service solutions, where importers could directly ask them questions. They could create a case related to PPE and then quickly adjudicate it and help the importers bring in, the cargo very quickly. So we gave them, we were able to turn around a case management system in a matter of days, which would have taken us, a very long time in the past. Some of the other things that we're working on too is, of course, our speed of processing. Section 321, which has increased the volume that we see of inbound manifests, that has required us to increase our processing speed on some of our legacy systems. So we're doing a lot of upgrades on the automated commercial environment to kind of handle this increased influx due to some of the changing requirements under Section 321.
Yeah, understood. So, of course, all of this, and you mentioned it early on, Bob, requires platforms and scalability. And we've seen in the Cloud Smart policy that OMB issued the emphasis placed on hybrid cloud environments, the ability to place workloads in the appropriate environments so that you can accelerate mission. What are you doing in that arena at CBP in terms of establishing cloud platforms?
Sure, it's a great question, and you know, like many large agencies, we're still kind of in the middle of our cloud migration. We still have a large legacy data center. We're making some great forays, you know, in Amazon. Most of our new applications go live in a cloud environment. We have some really strong partnerships with some software as a service providers that have turned, you know, increased our ability to respond very quickly to emerging needs. I think in FY21, one of our big goals is I don't think that AI and machine learning can be done in an on-premise government data center. I don't think that we can compete with Amazon or Google or any of the others. And I think that we have to kind of accept that. So one of the things that I've been really doing is working with my teams, you know, retraining, education, strong partnerships with the cloud providers so that my teams know the solution sets that are available, how to quickly access those solutions for our operators so that we can build out solutions that they can utilize right away. And then a really strong partnership with our cybersecurity directorate. So myself and the CISO probably talk 5 or 6 times a day. And by having this strong partnership together, we're able to roll out secure solutions a lot faster because we don't bring in security at the end. We've also developed some really strong relationships between my groups and the cloud providers directly. So, you know, we're kind of hearing right away as new things come out. The other thing that I've been concentrating on a lot is where do I need to make maybe some tweaks to contracts to bring in different types of resources or new ideas or things like that. You know, a fail fast mentality in my application shop. It's okay if it's not 100% the first time. We can get better as we move, you know, BEMS more into an agile off of waterfall development methodology. So there's a lot of things going on as we become more focused on being a cloud native shop. And it also means too that the old, you know, I'm going to build it, it's going to run a certain way in the data center until we sunset that application. Those days really have to be behind us. And it's a total, you're always developing, you're always hopefully taking advantage of the new things that become available in the commercial spaces that very quickly flow into the government spaces. And a merger of the infrastructure and the application development teams at some levels. Yet, you know, we're rolling out some solutions in BEMS right now where they won't even have to call the network shop to roll out certain things. It'll all be through the pipeline. It'll all be, you know, security compliance, our code will be scanned, but then it'll go out and deploy their networking elements. And that's where we really need to get because, you know, our enemies don't play by the rules. They can, you know, develop as fast as they want. So we have to, you know, be developing just as fast, just as securely as we possibly can, and ensuring that each and every day we deliver new solutions for the operators that meet their needs. So the final portion that I concentrate on is forming really strong partnerships with the operators. You know, going out to the field when we can, you know, my team being embedded with them. So we actually don't just hear the requirements, we see the requirements in the field so that we can build better solutions for them.
Understood. And Jere, similar question to you. I know that you probably have the same challenge in terms of scope and scale and the reams of data that you have to process in real time to get that to the operators on the front lines. What kind of platform approaches are you taking?
Well, what I can tell you, Margie, is that for a while now, we've been migrating to the cloud here at ICE, kind of like big ICE. All of our daily operational stuff, we've been moving to the cloud. Much like Bob, we're not 100% in the cloud yet. One of the things that we have migrated to the cloud for our operators, of course, is our entire case management system. It basically, when we flipped the switch, it was in the cloud when we flipped the switch. The other thing that we moved to the cloud is the software that we use on a regular basis to perform the functions of our job, which I can tell you from my own experience makes it a lot easier moving from office to office. We're not having to, reestablishing a new server setup or anything like that. We just have a pathway into the cloud, and we work with that. In the innovation lab, everything we do is in the cloud, and the guys over in the innovation lab love the fact that it's in the cloud because, again, like you talked about early on, scalability and agility. Because with it being in the cloud, we're not having to, the way we've written our contracts with the cloud, we can basically expand our space in the cloud or contract it fairly quickly, fairly agile. And so if my guys need more space in the cloud, it's basically just call and set up the space. They need to set up servers or whatever they need to do to move the mission forward, they can do it. So we've created in the innovation lab, we've created a really agile interaction with the cloud.
Thank you. I really think that it's very clear that these things are expanding very rapidly because we can't do the kind of predictive analysis without doing it in terms of scale. The kinds of information that you get on a transactional basis on a daily basis, just huge amounts of data on any given day. For Mahtab and Vimesh, what are some of the driving characteristics that are inherent in your hybrid cloud solutions that you're providing clients? And Vimesh, let's start with you.
Yeah, this is a fun one to talk about because, when I was in the government chair, if I talked to a cloud company, they'd tell me to put everything in the cloud. And if I talk to an on-premise company, they tell me to keep everything on-premise, right? And I think there's naturally a healthy tension. The cloud smart strategy makes sense, and from the WWT perspective, we think it makes the most sense to put workloads where they're going to be the most valuable, right? Full stop. And what we focus on is basically saying, hey, how can I help improve the experience? Because I think cloud has a lot of advantages, right, in terms of the innovation and agility. And if the five of us wanted to try some new machine learning algorithm, right, as soon as this call's over, we could probably get up and running in 10 minutes in the cloud. Your on-prem data centers have a ton of capability and advantage as well. And so our view is, how can we make that experience the same so that, if you're trying to go and operate in one on-prem versus one public cloud versus the other, right, it shouldn't be so complicated. To some extent, public cloud is sort of like what Uber was to the taxi world, right? Like taxis were a pain, right? In DC, they never took credit cards, and then all of a sudden Uber came around and just gave you the experience you wanted, right? And I think people were really tired of the legacy data center experience, and they're like, well, wait a minute, look, I have this elastic self-service provisioning. I don't have to talk to anybody. But I think what's happened over the last few years, right, is that experience has merged, and anyone who's responsible for infrastructure really needs to prepare for the fact that they're going to have to support in a hybrid or multi-cloud world, right, for a long time. And don't ignore that, right? You don't want to have your security and your automation and all these things handled differently, right? Oh, I have this level of security on-prem and then this very different one in the cloud. So we look at it from the perspective of like, how can I help, drive consistency, improve the experience, and put those workloads where they're going to be the most valuable.
So it's one continuous CX journey that you're taking to make sure that you are providing the same customer experience regardless of the type of access and the type of use that we're talking about here.
Now that's certainly the end state. Are we there? Is anyone there? I'm not exactly sure, but I think that's really where the whole community should be going towards.
It's a journey, not an event. Yeah. Most definitely. Mahtab, similarly for you.
Sure. I couldn't agree more with Vimesh. I think that we at Dell have a very unique experience of learning through thousands of our customers as they make this journey. And, I feel like we've already come to, the notion that it is a multi-cloud world. I don't think anyone will debate that anymore. And we prescribe to, the notion that you really need to have your edge, your data center or private cloud and your public cloud partnerships in place in order to, make sure that you can meet all the requirements for your workforce and your customers. So, it really does come down to the workload. And when you think about real-time analytics, that tends to do best at the edge. And I think that, it's for several reasons. I think, first from just physics. We're talking about, some applications that need sub-millisecond response times. It's going to be really hard to get that if you're hosting that application in a data center or in a public cloud. So moving that compute power as close to the edge as possible is kind of where we see our customers going in the AI space. And then similarly, just for the economics of it, I think I heard a stat recently around that 75% of data these days is created at the edge. And honestly, a lot of that data is probably not even that interesting. So just the thought of sending all of that data across the network, storing it in the public cloud or in your private clouds, like it just doesn't necessarily make the most sense. I think if you have that, edge computing AI stack that can do that computing on site and really just, send the anomalies, the events, the things that you want to further analyze into your private cloud AI solutions or your public cloud AI, solutions, I think that's kind of like the best of both worlds.
So it's a combo platter that gives you the best of the best of breed, I guess I would call it, in terms of putting together your solution for
exactly.
the continuous mission. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
And, we understand that there needs to be connective tissue across edge, core, and cloud. So when we work with our partners like WWT to deploy these edge solutions, we do so with a software capability that can extend the management of, these capabilities into your core and public cloud. So you have that single management and operations across all three pillars. So that's critically important. I just left that. I don't want to make sure to bring it up.
Okay. So, Bob, you had mentioned earlier that you have a very tight and effective daily partnership with your CISO and how important that is to getting it right. I know that when we were going probably through our first evolution of cloud, I don't think we entirely addressed the security concerns up front. We ended up talking about them after the fact, and a lot of the solutions were already out there. And then we had to retrofit and think about what the threat vectors were and how we could actually guard against them. And sometimes we ended up doing workarounds in order to work in those environments until we could get it right. Can you talk a little bit about how you're taking a risk-based approach to building that security in as you go along, especially with the types of data that you're dealing with and how critical it is, person-centric data, things of that nature. Can you give us a little bit of a view into how you're working with your CISO and what keeps you up at night in terms of those threat vectors and how are you guarding against them?
Sure. It's a great question. I mean, the protection of our data is critical. The safety of our officers and agents depends on our ability to, secure our data, make sure that it's authentic data that reaches them in the systems, it's highly available. So that goes into every decision that we make as we design systems. And to your point, Margie, you bring up another subject, the trade community. CBP is entrusted to safeguard trade secrets and other information. So we deal with all sorts of data, not just one type. It could be person-centric, it could be trade secrets, it could be financial, and we need to protect that all. So I think some of the things that we do, we have a tight integration between my software development and my infrastructure teams and the CISO's teams. They talk every day. There's a lot of handoffs between the NOC and the Security Operations Center now that didn't exist in the past. They talk on a first name basis rather than I'm just going to send an email and hope it gets resolved. So as the teams become more integrated together, they share ideas more often. I think the other thing that we try and do is, we all say we're going to build in security from the start. But you have to understand what you're trying to secure and, where does that information reside? Where are the systems running? We are still in a hybrid approach for some applications, some of our databases. You may have the front end in the cloud, the database on-prem. So how do you secure that? And then how do you ensure that you are secure? How do you pen test your systems? How do you audit your systems? Where are your logs going to? Who's reviewing the logs? And that's where a lot of AI and machine learning can come into play. because we generate, I think, sometimes just as much log data as we do other types of data. So there's no person that can sit there anymore. Like when I was hands-on keyboard as a network engineer and review my logs every day, even on a large network. It's not like it was 25 years ago. So as we build all our solutions, you have to make sure that each step of the way that you're scanning your code. We use a lot of, public code like everyone else. Are you scanning that as it comes through your Git repositories? How are we, everyone says, oh, the castle and moat is gone. We all have zero trust. We all know that's not true. We're all in different phases of zero trust. How am I securing my perimeter? How do I partner to protect on the big large scale attacks like a DDoS attack on my network circuits, but also the low and slow attacks where someone's just exfilling a little bit of data each day? How do I detect those anomalies? So we're doing a lot of work in the network space. We're rolling out this month a very well-regarded solution in that space to kind of detect a lot of different attacks by analyzing large volumes of network data with one of our network infrastructure providers. We're doing a lot of work on our pipelines to make sure that our security tools are scanning our code as we're developing. And then we also, work to continuously innovate. Alma Cole, who's our CISO, it's not just a partnership, it's a friendship. But as he rolls out new solutions, we talk and we find ways to integrate them right away and test back and forth so that no one's working in a vacuum.
Sure.
Understood.
And if you don't mind, Margie, I just wanted to jump in to say, I think we just have time for one more final question. So I just wanted to see if you had something you wanted to pose to the panelists to wrap us up, or I do have one brief question from our audience.
Yes, I wanted to make sure that we addressed one thing, and that was the overarching data strategy for DHS as a whole and interoperability between the two mission spaces, particularly CBP and ICE, since we've got you on the horn. What kinds of steps are you taking to make sure that you are exchanging information in real time and keeping each other informed of what you're finding with your own data sets? Jere, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I was about to jump in there. So for us, one of the things that we do is for HSI or ICE, I sit on the DHS's governance board, which is where we put all of our new projects in front of DHS so that the entire community of DHS is aware of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to develop. ICE has its own internal governance board that it as well reports up to DHS's governance board, where we again report what we're doing there. We also have really tight partnerships with CBP in some of our what we would call our tactical areas, but it's also where we do most of our information sharing. And so in those arenas, we have daily conversations about what's being developed and what we see as we develop this information and these systems.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that's so critical to be able to share across environments, not only internally within DHS, but also with your partners at DOJ and State Department and others that are part of the Homeland Security mission.